Depression is said to be one of the most common health problems in the world. Today on Healing Hope, we'll shed some light on this important topic. Join us. So we need to be more authentic with each other. How do we do that?
A lot of it is just being truthful, being...
Dr. Hardy, our theme here is life, health, and of course healing hope.
No, I'm not going to do it. I said, why? This is fantastic. This is an amazing...
There is a solution.
One part of who you really are. We're spiritual beings, all of us. Whether you believe in God or not, you're a spiritual being.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of Healing Hope from the Kettering Health Network. Today we're going to explore depression, what modern medicine says about it, and how God's Word sheds light on how we can be freed from it. A little later on, we'll also take a quick look at seasonal depression. But first, here's Lonnie Melashenko and Dr. Becky Wong.
Well, welcome to our very first television show of Healing Hope. And I'm so glad to be joined by Dr. Rebecca Wong, who's the Medical Director of Clinical Quality at the Kettering Medical Center. Welcome.
Thank you, Lonnie. I'm so excited to be doing this with you because we both were at the Media Center. You for
20 years almost.
Yeah, with the Voice of Prophecy, preaching the gospel.
And you with the sister ministry, Faith for Today and Dan Matthews, Lifestyle Magazine.
And we were concentrating on health.
That's right.
And finally, we're putting it together.
We're going to marry here on this brand new series, medicine, ministry, and mission. And I think it's way overdue, especially with the climate in our world today. Everybody is concerned about health.
And our mission really is to show our viewers how they can have really a full, whole life, wholeness, physically, mentally, and spiritually.
Well, you've also had a career in internal medicine as a specialist in that field, and you're going to be able to bring some of that too as we interview a number of very special guests.
Absolutely, Lonnie, because you know what? Most of what we do in healthcare today is treating disease at the back end, doing operations for people who are overweight, when if we could start at the front end and say, this is the way you eat, you exercise, you deal with your anger and hostility, because that leads to heart disease. You know, I'm sure we're going to have episodes where we're going to talk about these things and inform our viewers that there is a better way.
And the exciting part is there's hope in the healing technique if you look at the great physician and the pattern that he's designed for you.
And it's healing hope.
It's healing hope. And as a faith-based ministry within the Seventh-day Adventist Church, the Adventist Health Systems, and Kettering Health System, and others like it, really they're based on something quite different that can help people avoid going to the doctors as much. We're trying to work ourselves out of business, but we know that won't happen.
No, it won't. But I think that Adventists have a unique understanding of the whole person. We're not just physical. Our emotions, our mental attitudes have a huge impact on health.
And one of the things that I think we're going to find people be not only surprised, it'll take their breath away, that by plugging into the great physician's prescription, they can really move their health in the right direction. They can actually turn it around, a U-turn, and go from the main floor to the balcony in one fell swoop.
You know, you're so right, Lonnie. It's never too late. I don't care if our viewers out there are starting their lives, you know, as teenagers or children, or if they're 95, it's never too late to develop better health habits.
And of course, our teenagers today are having some major, major challenges, and young people. In fact, I had one doctor tell me that this is the very first generation ever in the history of this planet where, especially in America, North America, parents are going to outlive the kids because of obesity and other problems.
And that is really sad. And not only the physical part, but the emotional part plays a huge role in how they develop as adults. And having 3 teenage sons, who the youngest one is now 21, I've personally experienced how much trauma they go through with trying to fit in with their peers. The temptation for drugs and alcohol, it's all out there.
Big, big problems. It would be tough to be a teen today, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
So, we've got some exciting things on deck for today.
Lonnie, I understand that you recently had the opportunity to talk with Dr. Kirk Chung, a child psychiatrist at Kettering Behavioral Medicine Center. He has been treating children and teens for over 10 years and has some wonderful practical advice for dealing with some of the root causes of depression.
Dr. Kirk John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, you're welcome. It's great to be here.
When people talk about depression, the subject of medication invariably comes up.
Sure.
And that is, as a physician, how does medication help and what are its limitations?
Well, the best way that I've heard it put is that therapy is, with regard to depression, therapy can be very effective. But sometimes you just need that little bit of a push. It's like adding cleats onto your boots as you're in the bottom of the well, kind of pushing yourself up. And it depends on the degree of depression. It can help speed the recovery. It can help you actually believe that you can get out of it. Depression comes from a bunch of different areas. Everyone likes to talk about this chemical imbalance. And they come up to me and they ask me, does my son or daughter have a chemical imbalance? And I said, yes, and I've got one, and you've got one, and we've all got one, depending on what's going on here.
Interesting. So you can really mess up a mind, though, and especially a young mind, if they get too much.
Certainly. There are certain disorders in the mood spectrum. You can talk about depression, major depression. Its typical symptoms, difficulty with sleep or too much sleep, difficulty with appetite, too much appetite, this constant feeling down. And oftentimes depression will be the first manifestation of a condition we call bipolar disorder, or what used to be called manic depression. And if you were to give someone unopposed, an antidepressant unopposed by any type of mood stabilization, you can kick them up into that manic phase, which is where I would more likely see or more visualize in my head where you'd see this increase in suicidality with an increase in medication. You kick them in what we kind of term an agitated depression. They're depressed, but they just can't feel comfortable and they feel on edge the whole time.
It's ironic. There's more depression and more suicide with kids, and particularly teenagers, than I think perhaps ever before, unless it wasn't reported. But you deal with kids every day as part of your job. Is depression more of a problem with kids today than it was, say, 40 years ago when you and I were kids growing up?
It's hard to find studies along those lines. I think that it's more recognized now. My professors coming up try to say that, oh no, all these mental illnesses are pretty much been there, but we just haven't recognized them or we're more attuned to them. I don't know. Empirically, I would think that it might be more prevalent now.
Why would that be?
I think that you have a bunch of different sources for depression. I think that the kids are under more bombardment of environments that tend toward depression. And what I tell these parents when they talk about where this depression comes from, what can I do in addition to the medication and in addition to the therapy, I talk with them about the influences of media. I'm going to step on a couple toes of anything.
And this is interesting since we're on media right now.
Well, sorry about that.
Listen up, parents.
But, for instance, a lot of the kids will tell me that, well, I use my music to get me through these times. Now, exactly.
The car's moving.
Well, and then you have, on top of that, you have the lyrical content of the music. Now, I'm going to step on a bunch of toes of the therapists watching here, but the first form of psychotherapy that was actually found by double-blind placebo-controlled trials of the scientific method that was found to be effective was a type called cognitive behavioral therapy. And one of its tenets is that the thoughts we have, the things we tell ourselves, determines our mood. Now, we've all heard these affirmations. I'm, the Saturday Night Live, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me. To a large degree, these affirmations, these things we tell ourselves, work. The brain likes to go out and search out things that make whatever we tell ourselves true. If you say I'm intelligent, your brain will think, wow, I found my way here this morning. I've discovered this. I don't need a whole lot of coaching in this other area. But conversely, if you tell yourself, I'm so stupid, nothing I do ever works, your brain will find ways to make that true as well.
Interesting.
And so if you sit there and you listen to music that over and over again says, I'm so lonely, everything I do doesn't work, or everything is stupid and everything is against me, which is what you hear in a lot of this music. You begin to mumble it to yourself, you begin to sing it to yourself, and your brain tries to make this true. It tries to get away from what we call cognitive dissonance, what your belief is and what the external reality is. So your brain tries to merge these two together. So then you jump to the worst conclusions out of everything.
This is profoundly significant based on a faith-based approach. As a man thinketh in his heart, Solomon said, so is he.
Exactly.
We'll have more with Lonnie Melashenko and Dr. Kirk Chung after this brief break.
Over a century ago, a brilliant young Dayton inventor had a vision for the future.
By itself. You know, this Kettering guy just might change the world.
Today, that same spirit lives on at the Kettering Medical Center Network, bringing the best in medical technology from around the world home to Dayton. With that kind of vision for the future, what might tomorrow bring?
Those guys just might change the world.
You can only imagine. The Kettering Network, for life.
If I'm going to be a healthcare provider and if people are going to come to me and trust me, then I want to give them the best care that I possibly can.
I love it. It's great. The classroom sizes are awesome. You get that personal one-on-one time, even in class.
They taught well, and I learned well, and they really truly cared.
The philosophy of Kettering College of Medical Arts is such that our view of who we are as people means that when we care for others, we are doing the work of God. We are God's hands.
It was just so surreal to me because I didn't ever think I had a heart problem. You know, here I was 47 and they said that, you know, I probably had about a 1% chance of making it. And I did. Kettering is known as the heart hospital, and when I see Kettering, I think that's where I got my second chance, and it feels like home.
For more of the story, go to experiencekettering.com. Kettering, for life.
I knew it was serious the whole time, but it was still just unreal, and you never really soaked it in. So I was hearing all this stuff, and it sounded really bad. You can't even tell that she went through such a crisis because she's back to normal. They said she'll eventually feel better than she did before. So I don't think they realized that they not only saved my mom, but it helped save my family.
For more of the story, go to experiencekettering.com. Kettering, for life.
Now we rejoin Lonnie Melashenko and Dr. Kirk Chung as they discuss finding hope for those struggling with depression.
Now for kids or adults, once the damage is done and you've gone down the wrong road, what is the big picture need in terms of effectively dealing with depression once you're down into that slough of despond?
It's Pilgrim's Progress.
Pilgrim's Progress. John Bunyan, yes.
Just as there are numerous factors that brought you there, I think that the best way is to make these changes on numerous different levels. With regard to the house, with regard to the home, I try to talk in terms of sound bites. I will tell the parents, you know, because they ask me, what do I do about media? What do I do about these things? I said, the easiest thing to do is go Amish. You know, you pull all these things, unplug.
Unplug them.
Get back in, get back into personal communication, into personal relations. Work on that. Monitor everything that comes through. I tell the kids, you have to monitor everything that comes into your head from all these different angles. They'll say, well,
garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly, exactly. You know, we talk about the idea of the brain being this great computer. And they'll tell me, no, this music is so good, or this thing that I watch is so much fun, these horror movies. I get these kids with nightmares. And so I tell them, okay, are you into computers? Yes. So I have this incredible CD right here, and it has the most amazing graphics on it. You're going to love it. You're going to be amazed by it. So you put it, but I will tell you this, when you put it into your computer, in addition to downloading this great program, it's going to download a virus that's going to completely shut down everything that your computer has.
What an analogy.
Are you going to do it?
That's great.
You're going to do it? They said, no, I'm not going to do it. I said, why? This is fantastic. This is an amazing thing. Well, no, I'm not going to destroy my computer. I said, that's what you're doing to your mind.
Wow.
You're putting this garbage
so
in
media has a major, major part to play.
Well, that's one part of it. I think that we've lost control of our values. I think that we're, at this point, reaping the rewards of the 60s and 70s, if it feels good, do it. We have an entire generation of kids who feel worthless, not because they're actually worthless, but because they haven't done anything. They don't need to do anything.
And that would get to something we talked about earlier about kids today that are so obese, sitting around doing nothing. They have nothing to look forward to doing. They don't know anything about crafts or building sand piles and whatever.
Yeah. The easiest way to put it is that whatever you do for your body will benefit your mind. And generally speaking, whatever you do for your mind will benefit your body. And let me preface it with the caveat, medication's not included. You can't have side effects with the medications. But yeah, it has been shown by various studies that exercise can be helpful in mild to moderate depression, and it certainly can be used as an adjunct in more serious depression. The food that we eat, I was reading a study recently that showed that the highest incidences of depression and suicidality and other mental illnesses are correlated with those nations with the highest intake of sugar.
Hello, here we are.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
North America, USA, and Canada probably right at the top of the list.
You have Japan in there as well. You have various nutrients that we've lost from our diet. You know, right now everyone talks about omega-3 fatty acids.
Yes.
A friend of mine's a cardiologist who he says as soon as someone has a heart attack, he goes and he puts them on omega-3 fatty acids. And I had read an interesting study where they were wondering whether is it the omega-3 fatty acid or is it the antioxidant effect or the protective effect of omega-3 fatty acids that helps with heart disease, or is it the effect on depression that the omega-3 fatty acids have that helps with the heart disease? There have been studies that have indicated, excuse me, that depression can be at least as great a factor in heart disease and sudden death as cigarette smoking.
Wow.
Which we've known for a while. I think in addition, getting your mind off yourself. One of my professors used to tell me that for certain people, being at home, being alone was toxic because you get so caught up in yourself. One of my favorite psychiatry lecturers was a gentleman by the name of Dr. Murray Banks. He tells the story of this woman, this very affluent patient of his, who used to fly to Miami during the winter time and fly to Nice and fly to Rome and to London. She has all these things. And she says, "Doctor, I'm just not happy." And he said, "Why do you think that is?" So she thought back for a second and said, "Well, wherever I go, I must take myself along." And that spoils everything.
Oh.
You know,
it's all about me. Me. This trip, this thing, this latest gadget.
And I think what does Pastor Rick Warren still have the record as the second most published book or sold book in the world? You open up the first page of The Purpose-Driven Life, and he tells you right there, it's not about you. It's not about you. And when we get too caught up in ourselves, we get lost.
Now, you're a psychiatrist.
Yes.
You're a child psychiatrist. You're
Yes.
working in a faith-based environment. What difference does that make?
Well, if you believe in God, you have more resources. You have, I think that it gives you a sense of right and wrong. Too often we've lost that. And particularly in my profession, that people like to talk about effective and ineffective behaviors and these other things. And I think that just by our nature, we know that there's a right and we know that there's a wrong. And we're not afraid to call it by that name.
I really like what you just said. I think we need to triple underscore that. In a faith-based environment, whether you're a physician or you're a nurse or you're any kind of a professional or you're a housewife or a mom, you have more resources. Now, you're both a physician and a Christian. Is there anything in the Bible that you feel pinpoints the cure for depression?
Well, I think that Paul put it best. The entire chapter of Philippians 4 is a fantastic resource.
Oh, yes. Philippians 4, verse 8.
Verse 8, particularly.
What kind of jumps out at you in that
right
passage?
There, when Paul is summing up his letter to the Philippians, and I think that he's trying to tell them how to be happy. I think that he's trying to tell them what the secret is. He mentions earlier on that wherever I find myself, I've decided therein to be content. And then he puts it best right here in Philippians 4:8. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there is any virtue and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things.
King James says, think on these things. And of course, being a psychiatrist, that word, the mind kicks in, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Think on these.
This is what we should be concentrating on, not the cares. I mean, and it's so easy to complain about the bad things in this world. It's so easy to kind of jump on that complaining bandwagon. This is where I think some of the truest help for depression can come from. I've told people, you know, we've read these things have been there, and it's only taken 2,000 years for us smart psychologists and psychiatrists to put this together and call it cognitive behavioral therapy, and you can come to me, and for $200 an hour, I'll teach this to you.
This right here.
That's right.
It's right there. That's right.
I mean, there's more to it, but that's it.
So faith-based medicine makes the difference.
I think so. I feel that way.
Dr. Kirk John, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me here.
Coming up, Dr. Becky Wong with hope for those who struggle with seasonal affective disorder and some final words from Lonnie.
They actually do care about your progress. I know, when I heard that I said, yeah, okay, you know, you hear that from a lot of schools. No, really, we do care about your success.
When I go home, I talk about Kettering because I've had such a great experience here.
If you have a commitment to going into healthcare, you're going to get there in a setting where you know your fellow students and where you know your teachers. And it's going to make you someone who I think is going to be really highly valued in the workplace.
Never again just take anything, the perfect pregnancy, for granted, because you just never know. We were 4 weeks to the day early. I immediately was just like, we can't do this. We're not ready, you know, he's not ready. The special attention there was from the get-go. And so I knew he was going to be in good hands because it was their child, in a sense, that the comfort was just there.
For more of the story, go to experiencekettering.com.
He smiles all the time. He's just, you know, thriving. Loves his mommy and daddy.
It was just so surreal to me because I didn't ever think I had a heart problem. You know, here I was 47 and they said that, you know, I probably had about a 1% chance of making it. And I did. Kettering is known as the heart hospital, and when I see Kettering, I think that's where I got my second chance, and it feels like home.
For more of the story, go to experiencekettering.com. Kettering, for life.
I knew it was serious the whole time, but it was still just unreal, and you never really soaked it in. So I was hearing all this stuff, and it sounded really bad. You can't even tell that she went through such a crisis because she's back to normal, and they said she'll eventually feel better than she did before. So I don't think they realized that they not only saved my mom, but it helped save my family.
For more of the story, go to experiencekettering.com. Kettering, for life.
I love living where there are 4 distinct seasons, and autumn happens to be my very favorite. No surprise that winter is my least favorite. It's not just the cold, but also the early dark nights when I just want to leave work and go climb into bed. Unfortunately, for some people, it's worse than that. They don't just get winter blues or cabin fever. They struggle with depression throughout the long winter months. Seasonal affective disorder, or SAD as it is known for short, affects a fair percentage of people living in northern latitudes. Although it isn't entirely understood, it is believed that one significant contributing factor to this problem is the lack of sunlight that we get in the winter. In Nordic countries where winter days are extremely short, the incidence of SAD is even much higher than it is here in North America. More common in women, I've had friends and patients who develop not only depressed mood, but they crave foods high in carbohydrates, especially chocolate, which of course leads to weight gain, and then they don't want to be around people, and they also have trouble concentrating and getting drowsy in the afternoon. There are various speculations about how lack of sunlight affects our brain chemistry, but there is no dispute that one of the most effective treatments for SAD goes back to the early days of Adventist healthcare: light therapy. Daily exposure to bright light is the only SAD therapy supported by a large body of evidence. According to Janice Anderson, director of the SAD clinic at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, about 80% of her patients respond very well to light box therapy. And here you can see a light box. You need to sit under this bright light box for 45 minutes a day, and you can read a book, eat, knit, do whatever you want, but just that amount of time will improve your mood. The light box produces 10,000 lumens of light, which is 15 times brighter than a conventional 100-watt light bulb. But of course, going outside to walk in the sunshine is even better for your mood, because not only you're getting really bright light, you're also getting exercise. For some cases, medication and counseling may also be required. Here's another tip I recently learned about: vitamin D. In 1999, a small study of SAD patients found that a large dose of vitamin D was more effective than light therapy, and studies have also been linked to low vitamin D levels in the elderly who have mood disorders. So, if you or someone you love is suffering from seasonal affective disorder, be sure to contact your physician to find out the best treatment for you. For Healing Hope, I'm Dr. Becky Wong.
I love good news, don't you? Today we've covered a lot of ground discussing depression and what some of the things are that we can do about it. You know, the problem is nothing new. Way back in Psalm 18, David cries out, "The sorrows of hell compassed me about. The snares of death confronted me." But what did he do? He says, "In my distress I called upon the Lord and cried unto my God. He heard my voice out of his temple, and my cry came before him, even into his ears." We know that God is in the business of bringing hope. In Luke chapter 4, Jesus declared that the Spirit of the Lord sent him to heal the brokenhearted. But how does that healing come? There are so many different ways. God works in our situations, in our circumstances, in our souls, in our prayers, and through friends, pastors, counselors, and medical professionals. It's not just good news, friend, it's great news. And it's the kind of news that we will seek to bring you with every episode of Healing Hope. Thanks for joining us. For the Kettering Health Network, I'm Lonnie Melashenko.